Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome to Policy and Rights, the show about government policy and human rights. Welcome back to Policy and Race here in Depictions Media Radio. I'm your host, Michael Clogs. Okay, so we're going to start off with this. Politics hampering science. Real science, real research, and should not be hampered by the government. Shouldn't even be. The government should just stay out of it. Let's put it that way. That real research that needs to be done to help the human race shouldn't even be any sight of government with that. Because here it is in a nutshell. China has managed to bring back the first samples that they collected from the far side of the moon. Well, because of a prohibition law that says that NASA and China can't work together, well, NASA can't look at the samples. That NASA can't examine the samples because they were collected by China. Politics is hampering our development, our scientific development, and that shouldn't be. The American and Canadian space programs have fallen so far behind the rest of the world that because of Russia and China are pushing forward, the U.S. and NASA space programs, the European space programs are lagging behind because they're not allowed to work with their counterparts in certain countries. They can't even as much, in some situations, as much as solve a math problem together. Something is wrong there. Okay, so we're going to move on, and we're going to let's talk about the election for a little bit, the presidential race. President Biden is still defending his mishaps that happened during the debate. There are still people claiming that he needs to step away and allow someone else to step into the presidential race because he could be hampering the success of the party. As reported by CNN, President Joe Biden is expected to meet with the Democratic governors and congressional leaders today as pressure builds to defend his mental fitness for office. The White House on Tuesday sought to assuage the concerns following Biden's poor performance in last week's debate, saying his focus is going to be on continuing to deliver for American people on issues that they care about. Meanwhile, a Manhattan judge has posted a former President Donald Trump's sentencing in his hush money case until September. The move underscores a far-reaching implications of Monday's Supreme Court immunity ruling, and likely means that Donald Trump will escape any concrete punishment for the felony conviction that has actually happened. Okay, of course, the National Weather Service and Environment Canada are tracking Hurricane Beryl. Hurricane Beryl is hurtling toward Jamaica and the Caymans, and it's expected to generate dangerous winds and threatening storm surge. At 7 people have died in the storm so far, according to authorities, and it is very strong, Category 5, which it's downgraded from Category 4, which is downgraded from Category Okay, so that would mean that the UK is bracing for some sort of change. The Conservative Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said he was campaigning very hard for every vote, and his main challenger is Sir Keir Starmer. Said the Conservative claims his Labour Party was on a course for a huge victory, amounted to voter suppression. So there are many other questions behind that. Sir Starmer and his Labour team have been quietly preparing for government while racked with a paranoia about complacency. Nothing the Prime Minister has attempted, both during his conventional time in office and during his campaign. There are some effects that could happen here for all the noise and hullabaloo in the past month and a half. The colossal gap in opinion polls between the Labour Party and Conservatives have been barely budged, and the Conservatives from the top down are braced for defeat. So there could be a change from the Conservative Party in the UK to the... Okay, so moving forward, as we get a report from the CNN, Hurricane Beryl is chumming toward Jamaica, a dangerous Category 5 storm, after leaving at least one person dead, inflicting ruin across the Caribbean islands. On Monday, the storm has already ripped through homes in Grenada, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, where many still without power and water. Beryl comes to smash records as it kicks off exceptionally early hurricane season. We did hear Mr. Biden yesterday talking about that that his administration were blaming this, of course, on climate change and saying that it could be the first Category 5 hurricane to actually make landfall on the United States. And, of course, we're still talking about the immunity and the effects it could have on the United States. Mr. Trump did say at one point that the president should not be handcuffed by laws, and then we heard in another statement from Mr. Biden saying that it is important that the president follow the rules so that there is a balance of power between the president and he is truly representing the people. So, more on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court on Monday declined to settle major questions raised in a blockbuster dispute over laws intended to protect conservative viewpoints on social media. The decision delays a final ruling, rather the unconstitutional for states to pass laws preventing online platforms to moderate their own websites. Republican governors in Texas and Florida previously argued that the laws are needed to keep such sites such as Facebook and Instagram from discriminating against conservatives. The justice's decision means laws will remain blocked for now, while lower courts continue to sort out the constitutional involvement. You know, there is a point to this with social media that some let these conservative people say what they want, but we always have the ability to turn off what people are saying. At the same time, that if a group is spreading hatred in an attempt to harm others, they should be turned off, because we shouldn't be allowed to do harm to others. And we hope that the Supreme Court and all the courts will make a ruling that will protect others from harm while allowing free speech to continue. With that being said, we should actually, police ourselves and make sure that we aren't causing harm to others. Okay, so with that, we're going to move forward, and we're going to hear from the Canada's Minister of Energy, and he is going to be talking in Alberta about production of hydrogen fuel, and they're going to be putting about $11 million towards the development of that. My personal feelings are that more should be putting into it, and they should be looking further into trying to develop the hydrogen fuel in a real hydrogen fuel program for transportation, as opposed to what the limitations are of electric transportation. That it may be more sensible to go the way of hydrogen fuel, because it may be less impactful on the environment to begin with. And it also protects our freedoms and our rights to travel, where electric cars may have a limitation. We're also going to hear more about what's happening in Palestine, as numbers of refugees and populations that um, are being harmed by the fighting that is happening. There is also a mention about phosphorus weapons being used, and there is no real confirmation of that. It is rumored, and it is very possible. These are extremely mean and nasty weapons. White phosphorus, as it adheres to your skin, it just keeps burning through you. Just mean and nasty weapons, and we need to find a way to end the fighting there and find a peaceful resolution that just brings the fighting to an end and returns hostages back to their homes. So why don't we push forward? We're going to listen to the Minister of Energy of Canada as he talks about Alberta's program for hydrogen fuel.
Okay. Hi everyone. Bonjour. J'aimerais tout d'abord souligner que nous sommes réunis sur les terres et les territoires visés par le traité de Mississauga de la Première Nation de Crédit et sur les terres traditionnelles des Huron-Wendat et des Haudenosaunee. I am so happy to be here in Milton today. I'm really glad to be here with my colleague, Minister Marci Ien, with Milton's very own amazing MP, Adam Van Koeverden, who happens to be an Olympian. And thank you very much, Gordon Krantz, Gord, the legendary mayor of Milton. I am really glad. It is so wonderful to be here with a handful of Team Canada's incredible athletes who will be competing in the upcoming Paris Olympics, who will be proudly wearing our flag, wearing the maple leaf, and competing on our behalf. Could we please give them a round of applause? Yeah. We are very proud of you, and it is such a privilege to have met a few of you and to hear about the incredible hard work and dedication that has gone into your training. And you know we're going to be cheering you on in a few weeks. Our government is delivering fairness for every generation, and our plan includes investing in Canada's athletes, like the amazing athletes who are here with us today. They represent us, they wear the maple leaf, and we are so proud of them. We're so proud of you. That's why I'm so glad that with our 2024 budget, our government is investing in athletes across Canada, whether they're competing at the Olympics and Paralympics or in their local arena. Specifically, we're investing $35 million over 5 years and $7 million a year going forward in the Athlete Assistance Program. The Athlete Assistance Program is such an important resource. It provides direct financial support to over 1,800 Canadian athletes who are trying to balance their incredibly intense training with work or school. This additional funding means more money every month for these athletes to help cover training, living, and school expenses while they are preparing to compete for Canada, to represent us at major sporting events, including the Olympics and Paralympic Games. We're also investing $16 million over 2 years in the Sports Support Program to help sports organizations ensure a safe and inclusive environment for athletes. This includes supporting athletes with injuries and with their mental health. Dans le but de protéger nos athlètes, notre gouvernement a investi 10,6 millions de dollars dans la Commission sur l'avenir du sport au Canada. La commission a été lancée en mai afin de recueillir les commentaires de la communauté sportive et de formuler des recommandations sur des mesures concrètes et efficaces pour améliorer la sécurité dans le sport, afin que nos athlètes vivent des expériences sûres et positives. Finally, to make sports more accessible for every generation of Canadians, we're investing $15 million over 2 years to help community sports programs and reduce barriers to participating in sports. It can be expensive to play some sports. Equipment like helmets and skates and hockey sticks can really add up, as so many parents across Canada know. And this funding will help cover some of those costs so everyone can afford to play a sport they love. Nous savons que les athlètes s'entraînent fort et consacrent leur vie à leur sport. Ces investissements permettront aux athlètes canadiens d'exceller dans les années à venir et d'inspirer les futures générations d'athlètes. I'd like to conclude by sharing some good economic news. Last week, Stats Canada reported that the Canadian economy grew 0.3%, showing that the Canadian economy remains resilient. In fact, the Canadian economy grew at an annualized rate of 1.7% in the first quarter of this year. That is stronger than the growth in the United States, and it is the second fastest rate of growth in the G7. The StatsCan flash estimate is for 1.8% annualized growth in the second quarter. Overall, the OECD expects the Canadian economy to see the second fastest rate of growth among the G7 this year, and the fastest growth in 2025, tied only with the United States. And this comes following the encouraging news we've had on interest rates. Last month, the Bank of Canada lowered interest rates, making Canada the first G7 country to do so. Inflation in Canada has now been within the Bank of Canada's target range for 5 months in a row, and wage growth has outpaced inflation for 16 months in a row. Also last month, the International Monetary Fund released its annual Article 4 review of the Canadian economy, and in that statement, the IMF commended Canada's strong fiscal credibility and economic resilience. Plus particulièrement, l'FMI a félicité notre gouvernement d'avoir respecté les objectifs budgétaires que nous avons présentés dans l'énoncé économique de l'automne de 2023. Ces objectifs complémentent le point d'ancrage budgétaire de notre gouvernement de réduire le ratio de la dette fédérale au produit intérieur brut à moyen terme. Nous avons respecté tous les objectifs du budget 2024. L'FMI a reconnu que l'économie canadienne semble avoir réalisé un atterrissage en douceur. Ainsi, le Canada a pu éviter une récession et la déchirante hausse du taux de chômage que de nombreuses personnes croyaient inévitable. And today, almost 1.3 million more Canadians are working compared to before the pandemic. After our budget was tabled in April, Moody's and S&P, two of the leading credit ratings agencies, reaffirmed Canada's AAA rating with a stable outlook. These are all powerful economic proof points. They show that Canada's economy is strong and resilient. They show that our economic plan is fiscally responsible. And that really matters because it means that we can afford to make the investments that Canadians need in housing, in making life more affordable, in economic growth, and in our outstanding Canadian athletes, in our Olympians. Our government is acting now, and we're acting with purpose, because we know that Canadians are counting on us. Thank you very much, and I will now hand it over to my dear colleague, Minister Marci Ien.
you. Hello, bonjour, merci beaucoup, Chrystia, Mayor Krantz, Gord. It's good to see you, councillors as well. Adam, MP, Van Koeverden. It is amazing to be here in Milton. Adam called the velodrome earlier the heartbeat of Milton, and it absolutely is. It is. Sport brings us together. It always has. It has a unique power to unite us in good times and in bad. Nelson Mandela knew a thing or two about trying times, and he famously said this. He said, sport has the power to change the world. It has the power to inspire. It has the power to unite people in a way that little else does. It speaks to youth in a language that they understand. Sport can create hope where once there was only despair. Hope. Whether it's huddled around a television to watch Canadians compete on a world stage like our amazing athletes behind us, tuning into the NHL finals to cheer on the Oilers, celebrating a hard-fought Toronto Raptors NBA championship, or a groundbreaking kick-butt professional women's hockey league, we cheer, we hope, together, under one banner, the Canadian flag. But the road from the playground to the pitch or the field or the rink to the podium can be fraught with all kinds of obstacles, not just for athletes, but for families that support them and for communities that rally behind them. Today's announcement is about supporting our athletes through the Athletes Assistance Program. I asked a couple of the athletes just a couple of minutes ago, what will this mean? And it means a lot. Big changes in their lives. It means financial support. They need that. We owe them that. Helping to relieve financial strain so they can focus on training and competing, doing what they do best. But this is also about community sport for all and removing barriers to accessing sport at a community level. Because as Chrystia said, fees add up. Whether it's the cost of registration or a pair of new shoes, cleats, skates, they add up. Ces dépenses additionnent et les enfants méritent d'avoir une chance équitable de poursuivre leur rêve. So what does increasing access to sport mean? It means bridging the gap of entry so that all you need to do to participate is show up and want to play, no matter who you are. MP Van Koeverden, Adam, everyone knows who you are. You've inspired so many by sharing your story. I've heard it many times. How you came up, where you came from, your road to becoming an Olympic gold medalist, now member of Parliament. You've walked the walk, or should I say kayaked it. So please come and share what today means to you, Adam, to Milton, to communities across this country, but most importantly, athletes. Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much.
Wow, thanks everybody for being here. Merci d'être ici aujourd'hui, tout le monde. C'est un jour extraordinaire pour des athlètes, pour Canada, et pour notre économie. That's great news. Thank you very much for that update. And we know that when we support all aspects of our economy, including physical activity, recreation, and sport, we get really, really great outcomes. And today is all about inspiring those outcomes, laying the groundwork for those outcomes, and frankly, investing in those outcomes. This is an affordability measure for over 1,800 Canadians, the Canadians that compete for Canada. For almost 20 years, I was one of those athletes. I grew up in community housing, just a little bit south of here. And when I told my mom that I could get my university paid for in a monthly check just by making the national team, it made a really big difference in my life. And this is a real full circle moment for me, not just because I've got two of my friends from the Burloak Canoe Club here who are now competing for Canada, or friends from Milton that call this place home from a training perspective, in Jackie and Carson, but just because we are continually investing in the things that make a difference for Canadians. It's been a challenging couple of years here in Milton, from coast to coast to coast. There's been a lot of curveballs thrown our way. There's been a lot of upheavals in our economy. But when I think of some of the highest moments of the last couple of years, watching Kelsey Mitchell in the middle of a pandemic win gold medals for Canada on a track just like this one in Tokyo, or watching our amazing Toronto Raptors win that championship. Sport truly brings us together, and whether it's through investments in community sport for all, which through the last 4 years we've invested over $60 million in this program, and it's had a resonating impact right across this country. And on that side of the equation, we're not talking about high performance. We're talking about making sure that all kids have access and everybody feels welcome. And that sport, physical activity, and recreation doesn't have these high walls built up around it, that it's a universally accessible opportunity for absolutely everyone. And I know that about $5,000 of that $60 million ended up right here in the velodrome through the Hop On program with Cycling Canada, getting young kids on a bike for the first time ever in their lives, giving them that mobility, that freedom, and that opportunity to ride a bike. And one of my favorite athletes and a great activist as well is LeBron James. And he used to talk about how a bike changed his life when he was young, because it allowed him to leave his community for the first time and go out and just be out in and around where he grew up in Akron, Ohio. And it's the same thing here in Milton. This is a big community. Kids want to get around. They want to have access to whether it's a shop or a park, or they just want to go and see their friends. The Hop On program is providing that accessibility through the Community Sport for All initiative. But back to national teams, in less than a month, Team Canada will take the stage at the Paris Olympics. And a month after that, our amazing Paralympians will compete for gold in Paris. And everybody loves watching those athletes compete. We get so excited when they win gold medals and they come home with incredible stories of triumph, whether they succeed or not. And I'm blessed to have had a career where I've had lots of highs and lots of lows and everything in between. But those stories are part of our Canadian fabric. And they tell the stories of the Canadian experience. And they're diverse, they're different, but they all inspire us to be better every single day. So we're doing a little bit to support our national team athletes. For those watching back home, all 1,800 national team athletes are getting a little raise from the federal government today. And it's because Chrystia Freeland, our amazing finance minister, and Marci Ien, our amazing minister of lots of, it's a long title. Women and gender equality, know that these investments really, really pay off, and they certainly do. I'm so proud to be part of this government, and I'm proud to work with amazing ministers like this. I'm also proud to work in a community that invests right here, and to speak a little bit about how much this velodrome, the beating heart of Milton, means to us here at home. I'd like to invite His Worship, Canada's longest serving mayor ever, Gordon Krantz, to the podium.
Wow.
Well, Adam, thank you very much for that. And first of all, a great big welcome. And of course, Krista and Marci, we're on first name basis. We've already established that. But on the serious side, a great big welcome to the velodrome in Milton here. The announcement that the Deputy Minister just made is very significant, not only to the velodrome in Milton here, but to athletes all across the nation. And of course, my fingerprints are all over this facility here, and I question my own sanity back in the day when we were talking about, when we were supporting, but if you don't risk every once in a while, it's not going to pay off, and it really has paid off tremendously. And of course, the young gentleman that I'm about to introduce in just a moment, it's a testament to that. If you buy into supporting sports, it'll come back home to roost. And of course, we've got a bunch of athletes, not only from Milton, the region of Halton, the province of Ontario. They come here to train from internationally and nationally as well to this facility here. So this will just go a long, long way to supporting those young athletes like Carson that's coming up here right now and sharing some of his stories. So welcome, Carson, one of the great athletes.
Just want to say, first of all, thank you very much for that excellent introduction. So we talk a lot about the legacy of facilities like this. In 2015, when the Pan Am Games came to Toronto, was around the time when I was just starting to get interested in cycling. And for reference, I was maybe around 12 at the time. And the Pan Am torch-bearing ceremony came through my hometown of Ancaster. So getting to see some of these athletes and meet them and speak to them, and even got a photo with.
We're not meeting today, are we? Okay, next up, Minister Carla Quattro highlights investments into sports. Sports and physical activity. Minister Carla Quattro discusses measures from Budget 2024 aimed at strengthening support for athletes and increased participation in sports. She's also joined at a news conference in Calgary by Ministers Anita Amon and Randy Bozenot.
In spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta. This includes Siksika, Piikani, Kainai, collectively known as the Blackfoot Confederacy. The Yitchka, Nakota, Wichissabi First Nations comprise of the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney bands, and the Tsuut'ina First Nation. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation within Alberta Districts 6 and 7. Welcome to Calgary, and of course I can't say that without saying welcome to the Stampede, and to the Canadian Sport Institute, Alberta. My name is Katrina LeMay-Doan, and I'm joining you today as President and CEO of Sport Calgary, and also as a proud Canadian athlete. I would like to start with introducing someone who is no stranger to sport in Calgary, Member of Parliament for Calgary Skyview, George Chahal.
Thank you, Katrina, for the kind introduction. I'm George Chahal, Member of Parliament for Calgary Skyview, and an avid sporting participant and viewer. Okay, even more. I'm a huge sports nut. I believe that sports are part of the fabric of our society. They bring us together in victory and defeat. We celebrate together and we mourn a little too. The ministers gathered today will make announcements about the specifics of programs designed to help Canadian athletes. These are good announcements. In fact, they are great announcements. I won't echo their comments, but I will tell you a story of an athlete who trains here every day. He starts his day by eating more than an average hippo eats in a week. This is to build muscle, his muscle mass, and protect his body from the workouts he will endure and calories spent. He lifts every day, he trains every day, and he travels the world for his sport on his own dime. He works when he can, often double shifts, so he can make enough money to pay for travel, food, rent, and gear. And it's his life that will be made better by the announcements made here today. He may win a medal at some point. He may not. But that will not be his primary contribution to Canada. His contribution is his dedication, his devotion to sport. Sport unites us. It lifts us up. Thanks to each and every athlete that is training here today.
Thank you so much. And yes, there are many athletes, especially in this city, and many athletes joining us today and also training here at CSIA. You know, as we celebrated Canada Day a few days ago, I was looking at social media and I was reading the stories and the posts about how proud athletes are, whether they're whether they have represented or whether they are representing Canada. And it was just fascinating to just listen to how proud they are. And for myself, 17 years on the national team, 4 Olympic Games, I was so proud to wear the maple leaf. Faire partie de l'équipe canadienne, de représenter le Canada, c'était vraiment les moments de grande fierté dans ma carrière. And what I love is that, as I'm mentioning, that many of us are not from Calgary, but sport has brought us together and has brought us together here in Calgary. And with the support of many organizations like CSIA, WinSport, the Olympic Oval, we continue to be champions for sport. We continue to be supporters for the next generation of Olympians, Paralympians, and national team athletes. And I've been blessed to witness sport from the grassroots to the high performance, whether it's my work with Sport Calgary, whether it's the role of Vice Chair of Canada Games, whether it was being Chef de Mission in Beijing of 2022. But the power of sport is evidence, and the positive impact that it has not just in our communities, but on our country is like no other. C'est pour ça que je suis très fière de faire partie de cet annoncement aujourd'hui. I would like to thank CSIA for having us today, and it's great to be here with Minister Anand, Minister Boissonneau, Minister Qualtrough to talk about Budget 2024's investment in sport and about what these investments are going to do for Canadian athletes at every level. And it's exciting to be talking about sport. I know that just this morning at MMP Community Center, some of the athletes going to Paris were just coming out of the pool. We have speed skating athletes who are right here training right now. And with the Olympics and Paralympics just weeks away, we have exciting moments. Now they're exciting, and I look to the athletes that are sitting right in front of me, they're stressful as well. Because as soon as you get into those big moments, we understand that those moments are tough. But in order to have those moments, it takes hard work, it takes commitment, it takes pursuit of excellence. And in order to have those moments, we need the support of a big team behind us. So we're here to talk about that support that Budget 2024 and the federal government are making to sport in Canada. So to tell us more about that, I would like to welcome to the podium a huge supporter of sport, a supporter of inclusion, Canada's Minister of Sport and Physical Activity, Paralympian, champion for sport, the Honourable Carla Qualtrough.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks so much for having us here today. Je remercie l'Institut canadien du sport d'Alberta de nous accueillir aujourd'hui et de tout le travail qu'il entreprend pour le sport au Canada. Thank you to the Canadian Sport Institute Alberta for hosting us here today and for all the work you do for sport in Canada. As an athlete, as Katrina said, as a Paralympian, I can speak firsthand to the good that sport can do. Sport empowers individuals and communities. It breaks down barriers. It creates positive change. Sport certainly changed my life, and I am where I am and who I am because of sport, and I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for sport. As Minister of Sport and Physical Activity, my goal is to ensure that everyone in Canada has the opportunity to experience sport that is safe, welcoming, and inclusive. I'm squarely focused on a new vision for sport in Canada with a sport system that looks like Canada. A system that invests in athletes and organizations who are working hard to represent Canada internationally, and invests in grassroots organizations that enable more Canadians to participate in sport and live more active lives. This is an approach to sport that inspires all Canadians to dream big, to get active, and to have fun. Today, I'm pleased to be talking about how our Budget 2024 invests in athletes. The Government of Canada's Athlete Assistance Program provides a monthly direct payment to over 1,800 high-performance athletes as they train and compete to represent Canada on the world stage. These are athletes who are committed to chasing excellence even as the demands of their sport, their profession, and the cost of living increase. Comme beaucoup de Canadiens et Canadiennes, les athlètes travaillent sans relâche pour rester à flot. Nous avons entendu les athlètes lorsqu'ils ont partagé leurs défis. That's why Budget 2024 is investing $35 million over 5 years and $7 million a year ongoing to support Canada's carded athletes. This is nearly a 25% increase in the program. I think we need to clap for that. That's fantastic. Athletes have been working so hard and for advocating for this for so long, so I'm very grateful to that relentless pursuit of this dream. This is direct financial support that Canada's carded athletes rely on. It's a permanent increase to this program. It means athletes will get more money per month and more athletes will have access to this financial support. By investing directly in athletes, we are empowering them to focus on doing their best. For some young people, these athletes are role models who can embody core values of hard work and resilience. And our government is so proud to invest in them, and we continue to be inspired by you. To break down barriers and create sport experiences for everyone, Budget 2024 also invests $15 million over 2 years in the Community Sport for All initiative. With this investment, more Canadians will be able to participate and play in their communities. Sport can do tremendous good for individuals and communities, but we also know that without sufficient and appropriate safeguards, sport can also cause harm. That's why Budget 2024 is investing an additional $16 million over 2 years in projects to support safe sport, to support inclusive sport, and to support athletes' mental health. This complements the Future of Sport in Canada Commission, which was recently launched to conduct a broad and substantive review of the Canadian sports system and make recommendations. Au total, au cours des 2 prochaines années, le budget 2024 investit plus de 55 millions de dollars dans notre mission de construire un système sportif canadien plus sécuritaire, plus inclusif, et plus accueillant. By investing in sport, we're investing in tools and programming that help build stronger, more vibrant, and more active communities. There is no question that these are tough times for many Canadians. Many are stressed and struggling. Many feel disconnected and without community. Sport can't solve every problem, but I would suggest that in times like these, Canadians need sport, perhaps more than ever. And while the Canadian sports system is definitely a work in progress, Budget 2024 provides the means to make real progress on building the sports system that Canadians deserve. There is still work to be done, but it's important to remember the good that sport is doing. Think of the upcoming Olympic and Paralympic Games as another opportunity for sport to unite and inspire us all. This summer, we'll come together, over 40 million of us, to celebrate and cheer on Team Canada. Along the way, our athletes will inspire viewers, especially our kids, to see the possibility of sport. By supporting our athletes in Budget 2024, we're helping to inspire the next generation to get active and dream big. And of course, we have the upcoming FIFA World Cup here in Canada in 2026. From our Paralympic and Olympic athletes preparing for Paris, to our kids picking up a soccer ball for the first time, to our seniors staying active through pickleball. Every day, in every corner of this country, sport is serving Canadians. It's helping us to lead more active and vibrant lives. It's creating opportunities for us to connect. And this is the good that sport can do. Every Canadian deserves to experience the good that sport has to offer. And together, we're building the sport system that can do that for everyone. That's the sport I want for my kids and yours. So thank you. I'm passing it on to Minister Anand.
Good transition.
Okay, hi everybody. Bonjour tout le monde. You know, we all like to think we're good athletes. I know that I like to think that way, but the truth is that unlike the previous 2 women, I am not an athlete of that caliber. I'd like to thank them, though, for their words, and George as well. It's great to see you, Randy, and welcome all of you here to the stage. I also come from university life. I was a university professor for 25 years before getting into politics. So coming back to the University of Calgary is amazing. And I'd like to thank the University of Calgary for their work in supporting athletes and academics and the excellence that this university exemplifies. So let me just say that our government, as you've heard from Carla, is determined to continue to invest in sport and in athletes. And by doing so, we exemplify the priority that we are placing on investment in sport. Et nous bâtissons un Canada qui bénéficie à tous, peu importe le lieu ni la date de leur naissance. Comme l'a mentionné Carla, les Canadiens de tout le pays se préparent à encourager nos athlètes cet été aux Jeux olympiques et paralympiques. And with those games fast approaching, we're reminded that sport brings us all together. Sport helps us build strong communities. Sport helps us support families. That's why we're breaking down barriers that have historically prevented many communities from having opportunities to learn and to participate and to reach their full potential in sport. And we're stepping up to meet athletes where they are, to empower them to focus on what matters, pursuing their very best. And by doing that, as I mentioned to Katrina before this, we show our youth that it is possible to succeed in athletics and athletic roles here in this country. And I can't thank you as athletes enough for the example that you show to our youth every single day. Your determination, your grit, your participation, your cooperation is an example for Canadian children and youth alike. And as parents, I know we're all so grateful for the work that you do representing our country. Can we give athletes around the table a hand, please? So today we're announcing a $15 million investment in the Community Sport for All initiative. And the initiative supports national sport organizations in establishing more accessible and locally organized sport programs aimed at reducing barriers to participation. And through this initiative, we're going to help break down barriers so sport programming is more effective, it's more pervasive, it's more affordable for communities across Calgary and in fact right across this country. Tous les Canadiens méritent de voir leur avenir dans le sport et cet investissement est une étape importante pour qu'ils puissent le faire. Et maintenant, je passe la parole au ministre Boissonnault. Mais merci beaucoup d'être ici avec nous aujourd'hui. And thank you again for the example that you set for our country.
Well, thanks very much, Anita. Bonjour tout le monde. Oki, Katrina, thank you for being such a phenomenal MC. I don't want to say that I was a kid watching you do all your work because, you know, I lost my hair and you kept yours. But the inspiration that you gave to generations of Canadians, of Albertans, continues to pay dividends. So thank you for your leadership and for your continued commitment to sport. Carla, it's an honor to serve in cabinet with you. You are a fierce defender of not just sporty people, but everybody who wants to see themselves in amateur or professional or Olympic or Paralympic sport. So thank you, my friend. George, look at you in that fabulous jersey. You train here. Your family trains in this area. It's a pleasure to be on the podium with you. Anita, quel plaisir d'être ici avec vous. And Cynthia, I'm going to introduce you at the end, and I hope everybody's ready for your story. So, friends, whether it's Canada's amazing appearance in Copa America, or whether it's the fact that we got to Game 7, didn't quite get it done. My heart hurts a little bit to talk about sport right now, but the Oilers team will mostly stay together, thank you, will mostly stay together. I'm very hopeful for 25. And look, I'm gonna go way off script, and the team's like, uh-oh, what else is new? But I'm gonna say this first. At the core, sport is about people. I want to thank all the athletes here, all the trainers here. Investing in sport means investing in people. It means investing in communities. It means investing in the future of our province, in our country. And here in Alberta, the proof of those returns, the proof of that investment is evident everywhere you look. I am not old enough to remember the Commonwealth Games in '78, but I know that the Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton is there because of those games, and so is the early part of our LRT system. Our light rapid train system existed because the world was coming to Edmonton. I was a volunteer for the IAAF track and field games in Edmonton. I was part of the World Masters Games Board. Vancouver 2010, not only was I a volunteer, Carla, but I remember on public transport getting to a TV so I could see Sid the Kid's golden goal and watch us take gold. And my friends, we're going to host the world, as Carla said, when we bring FIFA here. But now here's where I'm going to go off script. I was a really heavy kid growing up, and my face was so big, even the uncles would pinch my cheeks, not just the aunties or the grandmas. And I discovered sport at university. I played recreational hockey 3 or 4 games. I did sport at Oxford, and I got 2 goals, 2 points. One against the U.S. Air Force and an assist against Cambridge. That's it. I got 2 points in my whole hockey career. But later in life, I started doing half marathons because I didn't want to keep the weight on. And then a friend of mine said, come and watch us do the Ironman. So I went and I watched them in Penticton. I thought they were stark raving mad. And before I left Penticton, I signed up for the 2007 Ironman. I didn't have a bike. I didn't know how to swim. I'd never done more than a half marathon. But you know what happened? I found coaches. I found a community. I found a group of people who would believe in me just the same way that one of the athletes here has a team around them that believed in them. And when I got in that water on August 26, 2007, I did not know if I would finish the race. I did not know if I would get the medal, but it didn't matter because I had changed my self-concept, and by being in that water ready to start the swim, I had become an athlete. And that's what you give to Canadians, that's what you give to Albertans each and every day. Turns out, listening to my body, at 10:10 that night, we started at 7 in the morning, 15 hours, 15 minutes later, I crossed the finish line with my mom and my dad in my hands, and I can tell you, Anita, Carla, George, Katrina, Cynthia, that day changed my life, and I ran for politics because of that, because I said to myself, if I could finish the Ironman, I could certainly take on Parliament. So thank you for what you are all doing to make kids and families believe in themselves, because you are making a great difference. Now, the next time you're driving up the Deerfoot at 110 kilometers an hour, I want you to add 10 more kilometers and put yourself right at the level of the ground, and that is what Cynthia Appia does as the pilot of a bobsled, whether she's doing mono, whether she's doing with a 2-person or the 4-person. Imagine the G-force, imagine what she has to do to steer that bobsleigh. She's here to talk to us as the athlete rep. Put your hands together for Cynthia Appia.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here. As Randy said, my name is Cynthia Appia. I'm a member of the Canadian bobsleigh team. We're here at CSI Alberta, which is a phenomenal facility. And as Katrina mentioned in her opening remarks, a lot of the athletes that train in this building aren't from Calgary, but sport brings us here, often on our own dime. That's the dedication that athletes have. They believe in themselves, they have a family and a support system that believes in themselves to be able to achieve whatever sport can bring for them to achieve. So this increase in AAP funding, also known as carding amongst the athletes, is vital. I believe the funding hasn't changed in about 7-8 years. So having that increase it can be the difference between being able to go to that last competition that will help you qualify for the Olympics, Paralympics, or Commonwealth Games and not. So I do want to thank Minister Qualtrough for listening to the athletes. This has been a long haul, a long conversation that we've been having to increase the carding that athletes have, that direct to athlete funding. But I do believe that this is just the first stop in an ongoing conversation in supporting athletes across Canada. Right now, we're in a bit of a flux, and the sports system is struggling to be able to maintain and continue the high level of success that this country expects us to get when we go to these high-level competitions. I believe that as a community, and I believe that as athletes, as coaches, as family members, as support, we can all work together to bring forth a new Canadian identity when it comes to high-performance sport. We need a new investment in infrastructure, a new investment in what the Canadian sport identity is. My biggest fear is that, in 10, 20 years down the line, that we might not have these great facilities anymore. And athletes will have to move out of Canada to be able to showcase what they have as Canadian athletes. I don't think any athlete should be forced to move outside of Canada to represent the Maple Leaf, which we feel is one of the biggest honors to be able to have. Sitting as a member of the COC Athletes Commission and working with Minister Qualtrough's predecessor, we've created an avenue for athletes to feel safe in sport, channels that allow them to anonymously bring complaints, and I definitely thank your predecessor for that. And hopefully with your support and with your continued work, we can continue to advocate for athletes, to advocate for more funding within the sports system for athletes and create a bigger and better Canadian sports system. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia, and thank you to everybody for your remarks. Thank you, Minister Qualtrough, for the announcement. I'm just going to say I have to consider, maybe I'm coming out of retirement now, but not really. But you know, Randy, you talked about it being an entire community, and this money right now for the karting, as Cynthia said, that's what it's called, you know, is a support for athletes right now, for high-performance athletes. But when we talk about the community level, it's about, that's where everybody starts, and that's what's amazing about being in a city like this. And you know, it's every province and every territory across this country, we have youngsters who will watch the Olympics and Paralympics that are coming up and who are going to be inspired. And we start at grassroots, and regardless if we get to the high performance level and regardless of the results we get at the high performance level, we come back to grassroots, because we want Canadians to stay involved in sport for life. And so that commitment to community sport, that's what we need to do, and continue to make it safe. And so there's a lot of work to be done. And Cynthia, thank you for talking infrastructure, because we are constantly having those talks. And no, athletes are not going to leave Canada. Athletes will continue to come here because we are the best in the world and we have the best facilities in the world. So thank you to everybody for your comments. Thank you for your commitment to sport. Thank you for the athletes for what you are doing and continue to do. And we are now going to open it up for questions. And we do have everybody available, and I will turn it over to Cindy, who's going to moderate the questions. So thank you everybody for joining. Merci beaucoup, et merci pour vraiment la passion pour le sport, pour le Canada.
Okay, final thoughts, and thank you for listening to Policy and Rights here on Depictions Media Radio. Final thoughts, we really do need to examine how it is that our government is actually doing things. When government is hindering scientific development, there could be a problem. And we need to ensure that science can work, yes, within laws and parameters, but without government interference. And allowing our government to put a law in place that says that they cannot work with other scientific teams around the world is a true hindrance to our progress as human beings. Thank you for listening today, and please find that subscribe button wherever it may be, and give us some support if you like what you hear. Help us spread the love and equality. This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.